And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to our show. Our guest today is the talented director-producer Michael Landon Jr. His newest film, Beverly Lewis's The Confession, will air on the Hallmark Channel on Saturday, May 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, and 8 p.m. Central. Now, Michael, we remember your dad, Michael Landon, from Bonanza, Little House of the Prairie, Highway to Heaven, and you mentioned before that your favorite show was Little House of the Prairie. Why was that your favorite show of all of them?
Well, you know, part of it was, for me personally, it was some of the most enjoyable years of my life. You know, everything during those years was going perfectly as a family for us. And so that definitely had an influence on me in terms of that being my favorite. The other thing is that it was a reflection of what was happening in our household. And the fact that most of the storytelling revolved around a family dealing with issues, tragedy, challenges, and, you know, making it through on the other side. And the way that the parents mentored and loved their children, the way the children loved back, all those things, all the elements revolving around family that were encapsulated in that show moved me deeply and then helped shape, you know, a lot of what I try to be.
Now, in real life, was your dad similar to the characters that he played on these shows?
Yeah, he was. He was. Now, there came a time where everything fell apart, and when that happened, that was by far the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me and my family. And because my father was so good and so loving and so kind, it was that much more impactful to all of us. So I've seen a family working together at its best, and I've seen it where it's broken. So I've been able to experience both spectrums, and obviously that's had a major influence on my life and protecting my relationship with my wife and my children.
How do you recover from that, Michael?
It was tough.
If at all.
It was very difficult. I mean, part of it too is just that you're living in a fishbowl, and your life is being played out, you know, in magazines and things like that as well. I mean, it's an added element to what's already a painful process. But I was an angry kid for quite a few years, and went from being a pretty good student to kind of just falling apart. So I had some tough years in there, and so did, you know, my mother, and so did, you know, my sister and my other brother and sister. So there were some definitely tough years in there.
And then what helped you change?
I give all the glory to God. My mom tried to get me to come to church with her because she gave her life to Christ, and I resisted, didn't want anything to do with it, and finally broke down and went. And I couldn't tell you what that pastor said that day, but he spoke to my heart, and gave my life over to Christ, and that was the turning point for my life. I started healing. I started, you know, getting rid of the anger and the resentment, and started finding forgiveness and getting on with my life.
And what have you done differently from your dad with your wife and your children? What have you done that's different?
Well, you know, the advantage of going through divorce, either as a child or a parent, the advantage to that is you experience the pain, and then you do everything you can not to allow that to happen again to your family. You don't want to hurt the ones you loved, and nobody does. So it's a matter of protecting your marriage, and keeping that front and center, and not allowing the order of importance in your life to get skewed. So for me, it's God first, and then my family, and then work. And anytime, I start to feel like that's getting skewed, I try to do something about it, because that's the order of importance. At the end of the day, what I care about most is how my wife and children view me, and how I've been to them as a father and a husband.
So you didn't let what happened define who you are or who you will be?
No, definitely not. Right? I mean, the blame game is something you definitely want to get out of. The sooner the better, in terms of someone when they hurt you, to especially as a child, blaming your parents for your life, for things that are going wrong in your life. Definitely want to get out of that as quickly as possible, because that'll only bring you down. You got to become responsible and mature for your own life. And the decisions you make are your decisions, and they have nothing to do with what your parents do. Now, in saying that, obviously, we as parents, we have an effect on our children, and we need to know that, and we know that things that we can do to them can obviously cause them harm. So that, I mean, it goes both ways. But again, what I definitely learned is the sooner that I started forgiving, the sooner I could get on with my life.
So this translates a lot into your movies, as I've watched some of your movies. And how have the movies and TV shows changed over the course of the years? The movies that are out there now and the TV shows, and what are we missing?
Ooh, that's a great question. Every once in a while, you've got filmmakers that do extraordinary stories, and I think it's the imbalance of it all. I would love to see more films like the one that recently came out, 42, on Jackie Robinson's life.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of films that are uplifting and can affect people in such a positive way, versus the degrading kind of just cheap storytelling that comes along, that I do believe hurts our teenagers, especially since they're the prime audience for moviegoers. There's so much violence and gratuitous content, and I do believe that's a problem. There's no boundaries. Anything can be said, done, played out on a movie screen or a television, and there's no accountability. There's no one really cares. But the bottom line, if they think they can make money, they'll say it, do it. They don't care.
Well, I got to tell you, the new movie that you have coming out on the Hallmark Channel is extremely uplifting. It's exactly the opposite of that. So tell us a little bit about this new movie, The Confession.
Yeah, The Confession is the sequel to The Shunning, and it's based on the novel by New York Times bestselling author Beverly Lewis, and it's the continuing story of Katie Lapp, who is this young Amish woman who goes on a journey in search of her identity, only to find herself in this embroiled mystery that has to be solved so that she can be reunited with her mother, her English mother, who gave her up for adoption 20 years earlier. I do encourage the audience, if they have a chance to watch The Shunning before seeing The Confession, because it'll definitely, right? It would be helpful, right?
But watch The Confession too. I mean, you can always go back and watch The Shunning.
Yeah, good. So we're always, you're always thinking as a storyteller, not everyone's going to have the chance to watch The Shunning. Even though
I'll tell you one thing, Michael.
Yes.
I'll tell you one thing. If you watch The Confession, you're going to want to watch The Shunning.
I love it. That sounds great. Yeah.
Well, Michael, it has been a great pleasure having you on the show, and I want to remind everyone not to miss Michael Landon Jr. and the Hallmark Channel original movie, The Confession, airing on Saturday, May 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern Pacific and 8 p.m. Central. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show, and I hope to have you again whenever you produce any other movie. We would love to have you on.
I appreciate that very much, Dr. A, and thank you so much for your time.
Two great guests today showed us how to make changes that will improve, heal, and enrich our lives. We talk about this often enough, but most of the time we don't act on it. The great Mel Fisher searched for years to find the sunken Spanish galleon, the Atocha. Mel Fisher handled setbacks, overcame obstacles, and reinvented himself on several occasions. Every day he would cheerfully say to his crew, "Today's the day." And on July 20th, 1985, Mel Fisher found the Motherlode, the largest sunken treasure to date, proving the point that no matter how difficult the journey may seem, persistence pays off. So I ask you now, is today your day? And that is the show. Don't forget to follow us at thedrashow.com for more. This is Dr. A. Thank you for listening.